Are you wondering if your child is extremely anxious or if they are pathologically demand avoidant? Okay, so the first thing I encourage parents to think about is whether traditional anxiety approaches are helping or harming. Okay, so often when our child is diagnosed with anxiety, we are encouraged to expose them or move them through things like avoidance. And this gets them used to the discomfort of whatever is making them anxious, like going into the school building or putting on their shoes or being in a social situation. This can be the right strategy to get them used to and develop a skill for something they're avoiding. However, if you have a pathologically demand avoidant child, these strategies may be making things worse. Why? Because they're not just anxious about some future-oriented thing, they are on a subconscious level perceiving that there is threat, which is sending them into their nervous system and their survival brain where they can't learn skills and they can't get used to anything because they're having a trauma response. So if you're using a lot of anxiety-oriented exposure and pushing them through these panic and trauma responses, then you may see a worsening in things like accessing toileting, eating, sleeping, hygiene, and or safety, a decreased connection and trust with you, and more meltdowns, shutdowns, freeze episodes. So that's what we want to think about, is what part of the brain is this avoidance coming from? And if it's happening on a subconscious level, then we need to work with that nervous system rather than skill teaching and the lens of getting them used to something. Let me give you a simple example from my own life and my own two kids. I have a 5-year-old who is anxious. We were putt-putt golfing and he was avoiding going to the next hole on the putt-putt course because he had to walk upstairs. And he was saying, I don't want to go up there, I'm scared. And I asked him why, and he said, I'm afraid that the wood is going to rot on the floor and I'm going to fall through. He was anxious. So what did I do? I encouraged him. I explained why he wasn't going to fall through the wooden floor, how it wasn't going to rot. And I didn't walk up with him. I pushed him a little bit through exposure to do it by himself, and he felt proud. However, with a pathologically demand avoidant child, they may not even know why they're having activation, and it might not be related to any cognitive thought. Like, for example, my 9-year-old PDA does not get anxious about football at all. He loves it. It's his special interest. He's there with his father, who's one of the coaches. But during the practice, he experiences losses of autonomy and equality, where another kid runs faster than him, where his team doesn't win, or he has to follow the rules or line up in a certain way, which are all losses of autonomy and equality where he is below the coach or another child. So his subconscious brain is telling his nervous system, hey, activation, threat, there's a lion there, and he is activating. The key here is that his conscious awareness is positive towards football, but he is still perceiving that activation on a subconscious level. So there are two different mechanisms, and if you push a PDA kid through a trauma response, they're going to have more avoidance and more activation and more trouble accessing basic needs.